of your daughters married a Jewish man, and the question is, was it difficult for you to accept a Jewish man into your Christian family?
Oh, not at all. We got it all from them, you know. No, I mean, with our daughter, when she married Zhenya, a Jew, she didn't convert in order to get her man. All the way through high school, she dated Jewish young men. And when asked about that, why, she said, well, they were the most interesting people who asked me for dates. And sadly, she has passed on from a very vicious form of cancer, but while she was still healthy, why, about every other Friday night, we would go to their home for the Shabbat meal. And it was beautiful. I mean, simple ritual, the lighting of the candle, and wafting of the smoke to breathe in, and then the greeting of Shabbat Shalom, and then the dinner would begin. And Kendra and I, driving home, would often say, well, we've been to ceremonial suppers, but in the Christian tradition, why, they're very solemn. You can't be religious if you're not solemn. Not so with the Jews. I mean, it's joyous. And the youngest boy would always begin by saying, why is this night different from all others, and so on. And then we would launch into a lovely supper, and the wine glasses never got low. It was a joyous occasion, not solemn. Serious, but not solemn.
Yes, you've said that religion needs science as much as science needs religion.
Yes.
Maybe you would explain a little bit more about what you mean by that.
If I can remember what I said. Well, okay, which side shall I start? Okay, I'll start with religion needing science. Science is dedicated to truth, to finding out the truth, discovering the laws of the physical world. And it has it took off in the 17th, 18th century. It has extended the lifespan. It has reduced drudgery, washing machines, and the like. And it has, in, let's say, lifespan, drudgery down, commodities up. But those are not inconsiderable gains. Great gains from science. Now the other side. The debit is not from science, but it's from a word that I think I coined, scientism. Science is all to the good. Find out the way things are. Scientism slips in without acknowledging it, that science is the only reliable road to truth. Not so. Science works with the visible world, but that's not the only world there is. Nobody has ever seen a thought. Nobody has ever seen a feeling. And yet, thoughts and feelings are the primary world that we live in right now. So it's that little slip twixt the cup and the lip which has produced scientism. Okay.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the audience? Yes, sir.
What value has psychedelic experience played in your spiritual life?
What value has psychedelic experience, entheogens, played in your life?
Oh, very important. Very important. It enabled me, it expanded the world and enabled me to not just understand, but to experience the glory of other realms that are not in view when our minds are in their ordinary condition. Now, I always, when I speak to that subject, I always say, I am not advocating. I'm not advocating, I am only describing. These are not playthings, and they are not to be toyed around with, but given the right person, the right circumstances, this ingestion can reveal, sort of draw back the shade into a larger vision of the world and its beauty.
Huston, she's asking about reincarnation. It is slightly variable in different religions, Hinduism, Islam, Buddhism. What is your view of reincarnation?
Yes. Do you recognize the name Ram Dass? Yes. Okay. Once when I was teaching at Cal, his name came up several times, and I said, I know him very well. I esteem him very highly. And if any of you would like to spend an evening with him, I will mount an at home. And our living room with putting in chairs and sitting on the floor will hold about 30. And if there are more than 30 that want to come, why, we'll have 2 of those. So hands went up, and I called Ramdas, and this was before his stroke. And he in Goodfellow, he came up in his little roadster and kind of driving cap, and came up the steps and into the chair of honor. And then as soon as he was settled and the students were settled, I invited a question. Hand went up. He was then Richard Alpert. Yeah. Mr. Alpert, do you believe in reincarnation? And without batting an eye, he said, it's there when I need it. Now, I think that's perfect. It speaks for me too. I do believe that there is a spark of divine in all of us. And that spark is never going to go out, which means that all of us are immortal. Now, don't get your hopes up too high, because this is also a just universe, and not everything goes. So there has to be purification, and those who have done wicked things, they've got to go through the cauldron of hell to have that dross burned off of them. But then in the end, everybody makes it. Is that our?
The follow-up would be on Islam's point of view, where you've got the fanafila, the subject and the object, merging and not reincarnating. So I was wondering what Dr. Smith,
At what point do the subject and the object merge so that you do not have to reincarnate as is believed in Islam?
Yeah. All right. Good question. Glad you don't let me off the hook too easy. Yeah. When I drop my body, the light on the television screen, I'm using a metaphor, will not go out. What images appear on the television screen, nobody knows. But we can speculate. And what I think is that when I check out from the body, as long as there are people in the body, beginning with my family, they're there, then I will be aware of them. But one day there is going to come a day when no living mortal has ever heard of Huston Smith. And when that day comes, there'll be no point in hanging around. And then I will move out of my individual identity, and my soul will merge with the infinite. To put it in poetic terms, the dewdrop will fall into the shining sea.
Thank you.
Let me ask you one more, if I may. In your life, you've been a Hindu Vedantist, Zen Buddhist, a Sufi, a student and admirer of Native American religions, and yet always a Christian. And I'm wondering what it is about Christianity and its worldview that has captured your love and allegiance all these years.
Well, the question, excuse me, is not well put. The Buddha said. The thing is that Christianity is not, precisely speaking, didn't capture me. I grew up in a missionary home in which Christianity was a part of the home. And I absorbed Christianity, as the Romans said, cum laude, with my mother's milk. And so it just became a part of what I am. And you could no more, if you peeled Christianity off of me, there would be no Huston Smith left. But I'm also a universalist, and I think that the divine has imploded like spiritual Big Bang into 8 times in order to instigate the 8 authentic religions that gave rise to the 8 civilizations that make up recorded history. And I do not prioritize any one of those 8, not Christianity or any of the others. Heresy.
Are there any other questions? Yes, Ivan.
I'll let you translate. The proliferation of electronics in our culture has become an impediment to the human connection, which I think we're looking for, and I would appreciate any insights you might have about that.
Has the proliferation of electronics in our society created an impediment between the connection that we're all seeking deeper within ourselves with that higher experience?
Another good question. Now, I don't know in a circumstance like this if it's even legal to say, nothing of being well spoken, to say, I don't know. I myself I say this is, I am just trying to plumb my own feelings as well as my life. I think that I am afraid that life is becoming more impersonal.
Yes.
If there were no television, and I will add no telephone, then all our interaction would be physical proximity. And now I will repeat, this is a tentative thought on my part, but I think that would be better, that there would be more humanity in our interaction, certainly than just watching the booth tube.
Huston and Kendra have been married for 65 years. And it would be my guess that for all of your learning and for all that you've studied, the greater part of your education has been your experience shared with Kendra, that often you have, through her and because of her, crossed the line of normal reality into the paranormal, to the ultimate reality. She's a very psychic person. Perhaps you would share a story or two about your relationship with her and her just marvelous influence on you.
I was a student at the University of Chicago, and a candidate for the U.S. presidency was speaking in the largest auditorium of the university, and Norman Thomas, I think, was away. And so I went, turned away at the door. Overflow crowd. I couldn't get in. Well, I was despondent. And among others around me that didn't get in, I saw a young man who had graduated from the same college I had back in Missouri, and so I went to greet him, and we were just sort of lamenting that we couldn't get in, and we're about to part when he said, "Oh, my sister is here, and I would like her to meet you." So she came, and then Bob, her brother, vanished. Here I was. And I even surprised myself. I'm not a very outgoing, forward sort of person, but I just found myself saying, well, there's a Walgreens drugstore right around the corner. We're both disappointed. Shall we just go there for a drink? I want to tell you, a drink did not mean a martini. It meant lemonade. And so we went around the corner, and I plunked down 2 dimes, and we each are sipping our lemonade. And Norman Thomas, the candidate that we didn't get to see, was a pacifist. And so Kendra proposed, well, she didn't say, she just launched in and said, "Are you a pacifist?" And I was giving it a little thought, and I said, well, I like to think of myself as a peaceable human being, but I can imagine circumstances in which I would fight. World War II was just over the horizon. And, but she took an absolute stand. No, there should be no waffling on this. We should all be total pacifists. And so it went. And when I walked her back to her nearby apartment where she and her older sister were staying, and walked back to the my dormitory at the University of Chicago. And when I turned out the light, I found myself thinking, you know, this was different from any date I have ever had. There was none of this sort of moony eye looking up at you and nodding and anything you say. None of that at all. She knew her mind, and she stated it, and she gave as good as she got. Well, the next morning I woke up and realized I don't have her telephone number. But I remembered, well, I did have the telephone number of her brother. So I called him. He gave me the number. And after the second 20-cent date, I knew I was in trouble. And that's the way it's been. I mean, for me, it was the best thing that ever happened.
But you've been in trouble ever since, huh? I just want to say